I told him, remember that your mother always loved you. It was at that time I realized how sick I was. And for the first time in my life, I wanted to live, but I believed I was dying. And for some reason, God pulled me through. You know, always in the past, I would pray, God, please get me out of this one and I'll never do it again.
This is The Bottom Line. I'm Gary Thiemann in Los Angeles. Freedom from bondage is the bottom line. You know, it's often said alcoholics suffer 1,000 deaths. If you don't believe me, just ask Debbie.
My name is Debbie. I'm a grateful alcoholic. I was born in San Pedro, California. I was brought up in an alcoholic home. I experienced my first drink at the age of 8 years old. Remembering that first drink, I can recall feeling really good inside. That didn't last very long. I got real sick shortly after, and drank again at the age of 9 years old. I remember the family going to the store to get more alcohol, and they left the rum and coke drinks on the table, and I remember going from one glass to the next, drinking the remaining parts of their drinks, and I remember feeling really good, and I remember liking it a lot. And once again, I got sick from the alcohol, and I didn't drink again until the age of 15. And I was also introduced to Seconal. I remember the girl asking me if I wanted a red, and I said, well, why? What would that do? And she said, well, it will make you feel good. And she caught my attention when she said that would make me feel good. So I took, I think it was 5 or 6 of them within a 45-minute period. And that's the last thing that I remember. I believe it was 2.5 days later I came to, no longer a virgin. That was devastating for me, realizing that had happened. But I never one time gave the thought that it might have been because of drugs or booze. I continued drinking from that point on. I remember that it made me feel a part of, for the first time in my life. I fit in. By the time I was 23 years old, I had 4 children, had been married 4 times, and had moved a couple different times from California to Washington and back again. And during this time, I had a friend. She was 21, I believe, at the time. She died as a result of drinking and driving. And I remember prior to this time, I had promised many people that I would quit drinking, and I was never able to keep that promise. But when I lost my friend, I promised myself that I would no longer drink because it was alcohol that killed her. And I come to realize that I couldn't keep the promise to myself and became concerned. I went to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I found out I was an alcoholic and left with the attitude of, who cares? losing my friend was very painful for me. She was like a little sister to me. And it was very devastating. I continued to drink. And I remember so clearly that at any time that anything happened in my life, a drink was always the answer. I just need a drink. Just one more. Just one more drink. I was in love with it. I was in love with alcohol. I wanted to drink more than I wanted anything else. And if anything threatened my drinking, if any person threatened my drinking, I would eliminate them from my life. I would just move, go away, and pick up somewhere else and continue to drink. And never did I see that alcohol was a problem to me. After all, it was my friend. It made me fit in. It made me feel a part of. As far as I was concerned, it was the one thing that never let me down. And the funny thing is to backtrack for a minute, at the age of 17, I had caught infectious hepatitis and was told that I could never drink because I had liver damage. And as the years went on, I got very sick. My kidneys, pancreatitis, and my liver. I was hospitalized a couple of times for my alcoholism. And not one time did I think that there was a problem. It was still my friend, my confidant. Now realizing that I'm alcoholic and not really caring, I moved to Washington. I got remarried. I remember an incident. I was drunk and I was a real physical person, always throwing things or hitting my husband. And I remember one incident where I took a cast iron skillet and went to hit him over the head with it, and he picked up an oak table to dodge himself from being hit, and the cast iron skillet broke in half. And I remember the next day him telling me, "You could have killed me. You know, what were you doing? You could have killed me." And I said, "Well, what do you think I was trying to do?" You know, and deep down inside, I knew there was something wrong with that picture, but I just didn't care. That's how it was for many years, just drinking and fighting, and the kids seeing this and picking up broken glass and broken furniture and feeling remorseful and wondering why things had to be this way. As time went on, I started feeling physical pain from my drinking, and I believed that it was the hard liquor that caused my pain, so I quit drinking hard liquor for about 5 years. And after that, any alcohol caused me to have pain. Didn't matter if it was beer or wine. So I figured, well, if I'm going to be in pain, I might as well drink hard liquor. So I continued to drink anything I could get my hands on. And I continued to be in pain, and it just didn't matter. I had to drink. I found myself living in Quail Valley. I'd moved from Washington to start over again. I left my husband, and I had 3 of my kids with me. My mother had one at the time, and I remember a friend of mine had told me that she had a house that I could live in rent-free to take care of it, because to keep it from being raped, as she put it. People were stealing things from the house, and somebody needed to live there to keep an eye on everything. And of course I did, and come to find out that they had stripped the house of electricity, the wiring, and so I found myself living in this house, no electricity, no gas. It was right around the month of May. It was pretty hot. We used the fireplace for light. I would drive to her house for me and my kids to take showers, and I made meals on a propane stove. Things just seemed to be getting worse, and I remember that meeting that I had went 2 years before and wondering if they could help me. But I still thought if I could just stop drinking for a little while, I could get my life together and things would get better. Well, they just progressively got worse. I caught the house on fire. I got frightened because the fire department said that the entire roof had to be replaced. The rafters were burned. And so I took my kids away to another city to get away from there and to get away from people that I knew that drank and used drugs. And I told myself that I was going to return to Alcoholics Anonymous and get my life together. I started going to meetings on a pretty regular basis. About 4 months into this, I met a man, slowed down on meetings, slowed down on talking to people on the phone, quit talking to my sponsor. By the time I was 6 months sober, I relapsed. The final straw for me was my father had asked me to go on the road with him. He's a truck driver. And I was really excited about it because I had prayed so hard to get to know my father. I'd been around him for years, but I never knew him. He was there physically, and that was about it. I didn't live with him for most of my life. I think there was a very short period in my life that I stayed with him and my stepmother. But I went on the road with him with the intent of learning how to drive a truck. And while we were out on the road, I was sober at the time. And we were in New York. And I don't know if there's any easy way of saying this, but he raped me. I was devastated, to say the least. I was sober, and there was no sedating anything. I was in shock. From New York to California, I don't recall even talking to him at all. I just remember that whenever I got back to California, I started to drink again. As soon as I walked in the door, I did everything that I could possibly do not to feel my feelings. I drank, snorted, smoked, whatever I could do, with everything with the exception of heroin. I didn't want to feel the feelings that I was feeling. I didn't want to feel the pain. I just wanted to be loaded. And as a result of the liver damage that I already had, I increasingly got very sick very fast. I got to the point where on May 5th of 1990, I was driving down the street, and I had my brother and my little boy with me and my sister that was pregnant. And I was driving, and I was paralyzed. I became paralyzed. I had to pull over on the side of the road, and by the time I had stopped the vehicle, I was completely paralyzed with pain. I couldn't move and I could barely breathe. And we stayed on the side of the road from midnight that night till about 7 o'clock in the morning. And I remember asking my brother to bring my son to me. And it was very painful to talk. And I remember telling my son, because I believed that I was dying at that very time. My son was 7 years old. And I told him, remember that your mother always loved you. It was at that time I realized how sick I was. And for the first time in my life, I wanted to live, but I believed I was dying. And for some reason, God pulled me through. You know, always in the past, I would pray, God, please get me out of this one and I'll never do it again. And I believed with all my heart and soul that I was going to sit there and die. And I didn't pray because I knew that I'd played the game one too many times. That day, I surrendered to God, and I knew that I had to turn my life over to Him. When I told my son that I loved him, I had a moment of clarity because there was no signs of love through those actions. Drinking myself to death. There is no love. I could see no love in that.
Admitting you are powerless and that your life is unmanageable, it's a step in the right direction for the alcoholic, but to surrender means you've taken action.
I also have a daughter that is in recovery. When I was going to AA meetings, she was at home smoking crack, and I had no idea. And as a result of her disease, she tried to commit suicide at the age of 13. At that time, I was 90 days sober. And I remember the devastation in the intensive care room when they told me that she could have a heart attack at any time and that I may lose her. And I remember my prayer was, God, if it's your will to take her, please give me the strength and the courage to walk through that. And if it's your will for her to live, please give me the strength and the courage to be the mother that she needs. And to me, that was real proof that God was working in my life. Because prior to my surrendering to God in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, that would have been a good excuse for me to be drinking. The part that really had an impact on my life is the fact that it was 2 weeks after my daughter tried to kill herself that the thought came to me that during the time that I spent in the intensive care room, not one time did I have a desire, a thought, or obsession to drink or use drugs.
Unless a grain falls to the earth and dies, it can never become many, only one. And all the rainfall and the sunny skies could not bring to life the sowing not begun. I would die a little, I would die a little to myself, to bring to you a gift you you die a little? Would you die a little bit for me? And in dying, would we rise again to life? And so our love goes. It will live or die. We will seek our own or seek each other's good. But when the tears fall and the well runs dry, will the sacrifice of love be understood? I would die a little, I would die a little to myself, to bring to you a gift you could not buy. Would you die a little? Would you die a little bit for me? And in dying, would we rise again to life? I would die a little, I would die a little to myself, to bring to you a gift you could not buy. Would you die a little? Would you die a little bit for me? And in dying, would we rise again to life? Unless it rain falls, unless it rain falls, unless it rain falls, unless it rain falls, unless it rain my life down for you, unless it rain falls, would you lay your life down for me? Unless it rain falls, unless I lay my life down for you, unless it rain falls, would you lay your life down for me? Unless it rain falls, unless I lay my life down for you, unless it rain falls, would you lay your life down for me? Unless it
You've been listening to The Bottom Line featuring Debbie Story. Deb, thanks for sharing your experience, strength, and hope. This show is produced for Armed Forces Radio Worldwide. I'm Gary Thiemann. Until next time, God bless you and share the message, won't you? This has been a GRT production.